welcome to another episode of Roll or Die. It's been a little while since we've had a lady on the show, and I know that Anton, my co-host, is on a mission to get all of the Australian female Jiu-Jitsu black belts on this podcast at some stage. So we have for you today
great goal to have.
one of the most newly promoted to that rank. And she is a black belt at Movement Martial Arts in Sydney. You've probably seen her around the traps. She's been on Boa, she's been on Subversion, and here she is today with us, Frances Bavaro. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
So how does it feel to be promoted to black belt? What's that feeling like? I may never experience it, so let me live vicariously through you.
Honestly, I was quite shocked. My coaches don't give out belts easily. And I thought I had a fair bit left to do at brown belt. So when he called my name at the grading, I kind of just sat there for like a minute or two going, is there another Fran around here? Did that sound like a Brad? Until I was finally pushed up to go and get it. And it was really nice, actually. My partner, Michael, also known in the community as Mako Photo, he invited my parents to be there and my old training partners, and it was all a surprise. So it was a very emotional experience.
That's beautiful.
I did not know that about you, that Mako Photo is your partner. Wow. That's awesome. So
I thought it was widely known.
Maybe I must be out of the loop on that side of things. So so he's the one that gets all the exciting photos and stuff like that, and you guys travel around. Does he compete as well, or?
He competed up until blue belt and then did a little competing stint at brown, but generally he's retired from competing. He prefers to be behind the lens than in front of it.
Yeah, I was going to say, because then that could be a whole other area that we could talk about, like when you guys compete together and have to, deal with all the nerves and all of that stuff. But I'm interested that you said you thought you still had more to achieve at brown, because to what I saw, you achieved a bit at brown, and like you didn't look like you were lacking at all. What was your thought there?
I think it was more about trying to break into the international scene a little bit more, and just personally feeling like I wasn't the brown belt that I wanted to be yet. So in terms of skill level on the mats and just general training in the gym. Do
you think that's a feeling that like most people have all the time, like their entire journey? Because like I'm used to that feeling. There's a George Bernard Shaw quote. It's something like, I've got to look it up for a meeting today, but it's something like, one of the great tragedies of life is when you get everything you ever want, and the other great tragedy is when you don't. Or it's the other way around, but it's something like that. It's like we're somewhere in between getting everything we want and nothing, and that's also what keeps us, striving and pushing.
Yeah.
I mean, jiu-jitsu's
going.
Jiu-jitsu is one of those sports where I don't think you can ever learn everything, and there's always going to be space to grow and learn. Yeah.
I was going to ask you how the imposter syndrome's going for you on that. Like, that's definitely a long time for me, anyway.
That one's definitely been it hovers back and forth with every belt promotion. That is for sure. Yeah. Especially when I started teaching. It was a bit to mentally get through and work through, for sure.
So when did you start teaching? What belt rank were you?
Actually, I was casually helping out with kids' classes towards the end of my white belt career, but then I started teaching women's only classes at blue. Actually, started very, very informally. More of like a open mat with me leading it than a class, and then it became put into the gym's timetable and structured and developed more into a class.
Wow, you're being very humble then, because it sounds like you've been teaching for quite a while then, and you're very capable from what I can hear.
It has been quite a journey, let me tell you.
Oh.
Yeah.
You might be able to give Anton some tips because he takes some classes as well. Sorry, Anton.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I like teach community classes, so like total beginners, etc. But I guess I know that feeling of like, just like, I'm like looking now, it's only been like 6 months, and I've learned so much about how much people can take in a class, but I still don't have, there's so much missing, I'm sure, you know, because I don't really have a formal kind of mentor in this space. Like, I'm not assisting, I'm doing it, you know, but luckily there are other colored belts on the mats. But yeah, what kind of adversities have you faced in the kind of teaching journey that you'd be willing to share, or you know, what have you found most challenging about that?
Yeah, I actually I approach teaching different groups very differently. So I teach kids classes very differently to the way I'll teach women's classes, to the way I'll teach just like general mixed classes. And finding the right style for the class is important to me, especially when I'm teaching women's classes. I mean, I find teaching women's classes is actually less about the technique that I'm teaching and more about the community. So I'm very much focused on building the relationships with people in the class, building that, you know, female solidarity, getting rid of any like negative, you know, female competitiveness between them. I don't want that kind of vibe in my class. I want it to be very supportive, very empowering, and a safe space for women. So creating an approaching my teaching in that way means it's less about what I'm teaching and more about how I'm teaching it, more about you know, the way I'm communicating, and actually even off the mats. So those, you know, follow-ups with, you know, how people are going in their everyday lives. Oh, I haven't seen you in a couple of weeks. Are things okay? How's this going? So it's more than just, you know, teaching the technique. It's, you know, building friendships and building relationships and building that community.
Yeah, beautiful.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, that's beautiful. I could do the same, but I'm a little bit different in my approach. I'm like, Anton, you lazy bastard, where have you been? I haven't seen you for 2 weeks. Why aren't you training? Not quite so good, right?
I recently had someone tell me that my women's classes gave off sleepover vibes. Like still girls having a great time. So that's fine. I'll take that as a compliment. I want that kind of vibe. I want people to be there and having fun and having a sleepover.
Yeah,
that's good. Like, you say you take the pillow off them, spin them around, and choke them to sleep, and then it's a sleepover.
We're already in pajamas.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned about community, because I think my first, when I first knew of you, was that on the Australian Girls in Gi page, I think it was there, or maybe one of the other forums, where people that are listening may not know what Frances does every year when there's a big international tournament like the IDP Worlds, is that she'll put a spreadsheet. You'll love this, Anton. She puts a spreadsheet together.
I'm really nerdy about it.
Of all the competitors with their clubs, their times that they're going to be on, their mat numbers and everything. So you can go to that spreadsheet, especially for us here in Australia, where we're like, you know, time zones so out of whack. And you can just
put the conversion from LA time to the Sydney date time.
Exactly. So, you know, okay, I've got to be up at 4 a.m. so I can look at, you know, mat 16 and I'm going to see whoever. It's amazing.
That's really cool.
All over it.
Wow, what a contribution.
I did start that really because of Michael, because he was, you know, asked to shoot like certain sponsored athletes for Hyperfly and whatnot. So I kind of started it just doing his ones for him. I was like, oh, this will help you out a little bit so he knows where to be at what times. And then I was like, oh, but I really want to capture like all the Aussies. Or really, I just started with like, I want to know when all the girls are fighting. I want to know when all the Aussie girls are on so I can share it in the page and whatnot. And then I said, well, if I'm going to, you know, put all the girls in, I might as well put all the guys in too. So then it just became like this, you know, massive spreadsheet. And I enjoy that people use it so that they can watch their favorite athletes and support other Aussies overseas.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that about, like, in each club, right? You get these people who contribute a lot. You know, they get a lot of pleasure and joy from being that person in the club who, like, organizes the social events or whatever. But I think our community as a jiu-jitsu community is not that big. So therefore, people like you can actually contribute to the entire community. Like, you can, just like someone does in a club, you're able to contribute to the entire jiu-jitsu community of Australia and give them a reason. So that's awesome. You know, it's something very, very, I love that about our community.
Yeah, I mean, that's what our podcast's meant to be about, like sharing with the community. So I think this is like, we've come kind of full circle here with you, Fran, that we can
Absolutely.
have you on and talk more about like sharing the love in the community. So that's really nice.
It's definitely not a role for everyone, but I am that kind of personality that would just take it on.
Yeah.
What do you do for work? Is it from work that you learned that stuff, or no?
Yeah, so I do actually have a 9-to-5 job on top of teaching every night and training. I actually work in the healthcare industries and specifically aged care at the moment. So I've got a master's in social work, and I currently look after you know, our elderly population that still wants to live at home, and giving them support and organizing their services so that they can live happily at home and not, you know, in a nursing home and without risk. So that's my day job.
Yeah,
Wow, that's awesome.
All
Fantastic.
contribution.
Yeah.
Well, normally Kim asks this question, but it's got to be my turn by now to find out, like, how did jiu-jitsu enter your life? Like, what was the discovery journey for you? What's your story arc, your character arc?
So as a child, I actually have a dancing background. So I'm one of 4. I've got an older sister, a younger sister, and a twin brother. So obviously, being a twin with a boy, we were quite competitive growing up. But as a female, I followed in my sister's footsteps and started dancing. So I danced for about 13 years. And I remember my brother was put in jiu-jitsu for a couple years, like about 12 or 13. And at the time I was like, oh, I kind of want to do this, but I never really spoke up to my parents about it. And then when I turned 18, I sort of graduated from the dance school, and I was like, oh, if I don't do something, I'm kind of, you know, going to get unfit, and I don't really want to go to the gym because I didn't like the gym environment. And then the place that I started training at was just on the road from me, where my brother had trained for a couple of years. So I just thought I'd give it a go. And in my first class, the instructor had promised the rest of the class the previous day that they would do flying arm bars. So in my first class, I learned how to do a flying arm bar, and I was like, this is some ninja shit. I'm going to continue with it.
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
That's amazing.
And then I was pretty much hooked. Actually, I wasn't hooked straight away. Took me some time. It took me until I found my first like female friend to start going to classes regularly, and then I got hooked, and then I did my first competition, and then I was like, okay, I'm sold for this.
That's so cool.
Oh, wow. Fantastic. Have you got any advice for any other females that are listening that might be starting out with their jiu-jitsu, how to get through those early months or years or whatever, because it's not always a lot of fun?
Find a friend.
Yeah.
It's always better when you know that, you know, your mate's going to be there and you're going to have a good time and laugh together.
Yeah.
That's good life advice in general, actually. I think that's good. I like it. But I also think flying arm bars from class 1 is an interesting. Is that how you start your beginners up now? It's like,
definitely not. I would not take on that risk or that effort. But yeah, no, it was great. I had a great time, clearly.
And so you've been pretty much competing since white belt, yeah, like all the way through?
Yeah. Started at the end of my first year of training. I started competing, and then competed right through. I thought I would tell myself I'd take a little break at purple when I was going through my masters, but I kept competing anyway, just not as well because I was not training as much. but I still was like, oh, states, of course I'll do states. Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been competing quite solidly, and then obviously had a break during COVID, as did most everyone else. And then getting back into competing after COVID was actually quite difficult, especially because my first comp back was subversion. So I went from nothing for a few years, and then suddenly here I am, like on camera, and this great big event and people watching, something that I wanted to do always, because I have a that performance background, so I always wanted to perform in front of people. And so preparing for that was definitely an experience.
That's really interesting. Yeah, like what do you like that performance back? Like, what is your experience leading into comps? Do you get nervous? Did that performance background just totally remove that for you? Have you ever suffered from nerves?
Definitely. I always suffer from nerves. Yeah, I think if you're not having some nerves, then what's there to get you excited about being there? Yeah. I think nerves are important. Gives you that little bit of fear, bit of edge to make you do well.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so what is it like out there on the big stage? Like, because you did bowler as well, like how does that compare to, say, States or Pentax or one of the other less?
Good question. In terms of training prep, it's a little bit more specific because you know who you're going to be fighting against. So training prep is slightly different, but everything else is the same. I train normally the same way. I'll prepare that day the same way. Nerves might be a little bit more heightened, but we have techniques to manage that the same way I would manage it at a normal competition. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, actually, what does your prep look, or what does your training look like? Like,
What's a normal week for you, like, besides teaching? Like, how often would you train, like, in the lead up to
I never train as much as I want to train because I do work full time and then teach. So I teach pretty much every night, and I will train usually 2 or 3 nights in a week. And if I need a bit extra, I'll find a partner, book in like just some one-on-one sessions to just do extra drilling or open mats or something like that. So yeah, mostly I'm training about 3 nights a week for a couple of hours, 2-3 hours, if my body can handle it.
We just lost audio
I've
as
lost,
well.
I just lost that last.
Weight training. So I do a bit of weight training once or twice a week. I also I have a exercise physiologist that does more prehab work with me, and also rehab for many injuries that I've had over the years, so that I can keep training. Yeah.
That's interesting.
So tell me about your injuries. What injuries have you had?
Actually, I've been pretty lucky. I've had nothing major, just minor strains, couple of knee pops, but nothing serious, so no tears or anything like that. So I've been pretty lucky. The most I've had off is 2 weeks from an injury.
Oh, gee, that's all right. And how long have you been doing it?
Yeah,
like more than 10
it's
years.
Just past 10 years.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's impressive.
I wouldn't say it's luck, actually. I'd say it's just being very careful.
Are you choosy with your partners in training?
Yes.
Like, and what's your strategy with that, with, say, knocking back someone? Because to be honest, I still sometimes have problems with that, of how to, when someone asks me for a role that I don't want to roll with, what's your way of
if I'm feeling quite introverted, I'm just going to avoid eye contact. But mostly I'll just say, oh, look, I'm not really feeling well today, or I'm feeling a little bit off and I'm a bit injured, so I'm just going to sit out this round. Or I usually try to line up my partners ahead of time, especially if I have a comp coming up and I want to have good training partners, good rounds. So I'll line up my partners ahead of, the rounds. I'll coach will call, okay, we're going to roll now, and I'll look at someone and be like, first roll, second roll, yep, third roll, okay, cool. So that way I can.
And they then mix it up like, oh wait, I thought we were fourth, and then I'm like, oh, I'm without a partner for one round. And you've got to find that other person that's also looking, and I know what you mean.
Actually, it is an interesting thing, right? Because our gym's going through a transition, right? And what I've noticed lately is a lot of the women have cycled through, and now there's a whole new kind of group. There's less, and there's a different group. And I'm used to rolling with lots of women. And now if I ask women, they're saying no. Like most of the time they're saying no, right? So, and I actually have to, like up until now.
What is it about you that they're saying no to? And
yeah, I don't know. This is the thing. Like I'm not used to it, right? And like up until now, I've always been really cool about it. And like, it's like, you should be able to choose who you roll with. And, I've tried, like, because my experience, actually what I'm discovering now, my experience is that I very rarely am rejected. You know what I mean? But now almost everybody's saying no to me who's female. And it's actually, I think we need a system. We need to work, because sometimes I say, oh no, I'm going to take a break, but then I look over and they're just rolling with another girl. Or, you know what I mean?
Yep,
like,
I do that.
There's an awkwardness, right? And like, I'm not saying it's bad. I totally get it. They feel awkward. They don't feel good about it. I don't feel good about it. And it should be nothing, all of us should just not attach any meaning to it. But even if they say no and they don't give me sometimes women just say no to me. And even that, it's like, okay, is that no for now? Is that no? Should I never ask you again? So then I might ask them again later. And like, it's a really tough situation, I've got to say, because now I'm for the first time in a situation where I'm not popular, and it's like, so, okay, so I've got to deal with that, So I think a protocol could be invented. It could be like, even like, no, like it could be, is it no for now? Is it no forever? Is it, I only roll with women? Also, one of the gyms I train in has a lot of Muslim culture, and then they don't roll with women at all. And so the women that I bring in who come and train with me, they want to roll with the men, but the men won't roll with them. So we've got all of these other things tied in. Like, we could do better as a community, I think, in that area,
Yeah.
But
I
guess
I was just going to say, it's really your prerogative as to who you want to roll with. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You're the guest.
I mean, I give that advice to all of my girls. I say, choose someone who's going to be a good role for you. So choose someone that you're going to get stuff out of. You're not going to be, sitting on top of them on mount for 4 minutes and not doing anything because they don't know anything. And vice versa, you're not going to be stuck underneath, mount, and they're just sitting on you and they're not progressing and you're not progressing and you're getting nothing out of it. Choose people that are more experienced. So they choose, high level blue belts and above. More color belts are going to know how to roll hard with you, but also not injure you, and keep that intensity, but still be a very safe roll. And I say people your size. So your size, or as close to your size as possible. And if you are going to be rolling someone who is a different size to you or who might not be as safe of a roll, then I say change how you roll with that person. So don't roll like you normally would. Roll in a more protective manner. Roll to keep yourself safe. Roll defensive. There's nothing wrong with having a round and you're just defending yourself from attacks the whole time. I'd rather you're doing that and protecting yourself than, trying to go on the offense and, if you kick it up a level, that next person's going to kick it up to try and match you and go even higher. So then you're just sort of escalating your role, and that, I don't know, it's an injury waiting to happen. So if you're going to roll someone who might be unsafe or not a good fit, roll safe.
Great advice.
And Fran, what's next for you? What's the future look like? Any plans?
I don't know, a bit hard to say at the moment because, there's less and less competitors as I've gone up the belt ranking here in Australia. So I feel that I do need to, compete overseas more. But I just got my black belt, so I'm just happy to chill for a little bit and keep working on building my jiu-jitsu, keep teaching, keep getting better. And then, maybe Worlds in a couple of years or something like that. When
Awesome.
I mean, if I go to Worlds now, I'm, you know, in the division with like Fion and Bia and, you know,
Yeah.
Hope Douglas is in my division. So it's, I can't just go to roles and it'd be nameless girls anymore. It's going to be big names. So it's really going to be different than normal.
Yeah.
Is MMA a possibility?
Nah. My hand coordination is not there. Legs are, but hand-eye coordination. Let me fix it.
It's funny you mentioned that you're a dancer, because I swear I've seen you dancing in the bullpen before comp. Yeah.
Every time I'm at a comp, I will get at least 5 people sending me Instagram messages where they've just filmed me dancing with my headphones on in the bullpen.
Yeah.
So cool.
It is my happy place, mental place to get me hyped up and in the mood before a comp, and also just to put me in a good mood. Yeah.
So great. Gotta love dancing.
We need one of those, Anton, that we could have shared here, like a screen share here, so that we can tell our listeners.
Yeah, we're not prepared enough.
It's a very.
It's
of course,
it's not always good
dancing.
It's quite embarrassing, but it's also like what I need to get myself in the mood, so I'll do it anyway.
More of that in the bullpen. Absolutely. I endorse that entirely. There should be more people dancing in the bullpen.
I mean, I saw Christina Balan does that a lot, and I was like, okay, if it's good enough for her, it's good enough for me.
Yeah, she was a dancer too, I think, in the past life. So
yeah, and she's always dancing in the bullpen.
Did you find that helped your jiu-jitsu at all, the dancing? Was there any crossover or?
I found that it gave me more body awareness, so more awareness of my limbs and how I move than other people that started around the same time as me. And also it made me like I was able to learn quickly. You know, you're used to learning new routines every couple of weeks, so your you know, retention of how to move your body, I had that ability to learn quickly at the start. Yeah.
Would you advise, like, obviously this is a total personal preference question, but in your experience for kids, should parents be considering dancing or jiu-jitsu for their kids, or both?
I would say it's important to introduce your kid to a martial arts because of self-defense. It's invaluable for life, but also play to what your kid wants. Yeah.
I like that.
If I see too many parents sometimes, you know, with their kids in jiu-jitsu and they're living vicariously through their kids. So I'm a big advocate of your kid knows what they want to do most. So listen to your kid, because if they're not having a good time, it's going to be tough on the coaches, their training partners. They don't want to be there. They're not having a good time. So listen to your kid, I guess. Hard for me to say. I'm not a mom, so don't have kids. So a bit tough for me to actually say that, but
no. I mean, I am a mum.
That would be my advice.
Agree 100% when you say, Anton, as a parent, like that.
Yeah, 100%. Totally and I have lived vicariously through my kid. Didn't do him any favors. So,
No, we're nearly out of time.
Like, especially comps are so tough. So, you know, putting your kid in a comp that they don't really want to be there.
No,
absolutely.
We've only got a couple of minutes left, but do you have any final words, Fran, any parting thoughts for our listeners?
Having just reached my black belt, you know, when you're a white belt, it seems like very far off goal and insurmountable, but it's not. And the key is just training consistently. So find some friends, bring them with you on the mats, have a great time and keep going.
Woo. I agree.
Great advice. Fantastic. Awesome. All right, we'll have this episode out. It'll be a couple of weeks. We've got a few others lined up in the bank that we've got, but if you could share this on your social media platform, that would be awesome, and we can hopefully grow our little audience, because as I said, we're all about the community. You're about the community, so let's bring this jiu-jitsu community love together. And thank you once again.
I'll share it on share it on all my socials, and hope you guys achieve your goal of getting all the black belts in Australia on. That would be awesome.
That's
I'm
awesome.
trying. So
Hopefully we
yeah,
get to
thank
roll
you
one
much.
day. My track record of being accepted by women for a role lately, not great, but hopefully we get to roll one day.
I'll accept you, Anton.
Thanks,
And then
man.
you might see, you'll see how I'm rolling. Oh, is she a bit more protective today, or is she a little bit more assertive? Am I this guy?
No, you'll say I'm taking a break, and then I'll look over and you're rolling with Kim. That's how.
Well, Fran and I we were going to compete together, talking about states. There was, I think it was last year or the year before, I can't remember, where I didn't have any entrance in the black belt division, and Fran had entered at brown, and then I think her opponent got injured. So she'd come down from Sydney to compete and didn't have anyone. And we were going to do like an exhibition match sort of thing, but yeah, it didn't end up happening. So her and I have not rolled either. So
wow.
yeah.
Oh, cool.
I actually put it on all my social medias. I was like, someone please come and fight me. Please, I'm coming all the way down to Melbourne. I was like begging people just to give me a match. And you were the only one that responded. So thank you, Kim. But yeah, I'll be in Melbourne in a couple of weeks. So we should tee up some time to train.
Awesome.
Let's be in touch. Awesome. All right. Thank you once again, and see you on the match.
Thanks, Fran.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Bye.